Hello and welcome to the Providence College podcast. My name is Joe Carr. Most often, we spend a few minutes at the beginning of our podcast providing background on our guests. That won't be necessary today, as we are joined by someone known to all in the Providence College community, Athletic Director Bob Driscoll. Bob, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Joe. Happy to be back.
You are, I think, our first repeat guest, so this is a good sign. Things are coming along. You and I, Bob, among many others, are still sort of basking in the glow of the World Series and the Red Sox championship and all that happened with that team all year. As someone who spent most of his career building teams, what do you see in that Red Sox team? What made it so special?
Well, I think the leadership was amazing. You look how cool, calm, and collected he was in the dugout, making all the right moves.
That's correct, sure.
Pretty amazing for a young guy, and really related, I think, to his players. But I think just the grit that they had, right? Even, people always question them out of the curse and so forth. But if you watch the way they played, they completely dominated the Dodgers and everybody else that they played against, and just they believed in each other. And I was really impressed with just the passion and energy in which they competed. One of the great series of all times, right?
One of the great teams of all time. I think that's fair to say, isn't it, by just about any measure?
Yeah, it was really special. I was reflecting as I was watching the championship and how you have memories of the Red Sox as a kid, right? Having grown up 10 miles down the road. And I remembered vividly in 1967, I actually was in the dugout when they were playing the St. Louis Cardinals with the great Bob Gibson. He had won 3 games. My aunt's boyfriend was the equipment manager for the Red Sox, and I was in the dugout with all those great players and Jim Lomborg, and Carl Yastrzemski, who was my hero, and I thought that was 51 years ago, and the love and passion remains the same. So that's the great thing about the Red Sox, right? There's childhood memories that last a lifetime.
And a great thing about sports, it brings together families and communities, and there's a sense of excitement about it, and it's generally speaking fun. It's a great thing.
That's a lot of fun.
Let's talk about Friar sports. This is a busy time of year, so we're sort of winding down some of the fall sports season. Some of the winter sports, hockey, for example, are underway. Basketball's right in front of us. Busiest time of year?
I think the transition is a busy time because obviously our 2 soccer teams are in the playoffs, and field hockey's in the playoffs. Cross country just ran the Big East championships, and now you've got the hockey teams going and the basketball teams going. But for me, it's the best time of year because you get to run from one event to the next. The summertime's spent planning and getting organized, but when game day comes, and there's a lot of game days this time of year, it's my most enjoyable time of year.
There must be weeks where you see maybe 7 to 10 games?
Yeah, I was trying to calculate how many I've seen in my lifetime, and it's been tens of thousands.
Sure.
I think my wife has taken a knee after all these years, but it's a complete joy to watch the next generation of young men and women come through, and they're getting better and better every year, Joe.
We can't really go through sport by sport, but as we approach the end of the fall season, I would like to just touch briefly on cross country, because you just mentioned the Big East championships and such tremendous success throughout the history of the athletics program here, and the center of most of it is Ray Tracy. His name's on the track, obviously. I've heard you refer to him as the greatest coach that Providence College has had. What is it about Ray Tracy, and what makes him such a special coach?
Well, he's a humble guy. You'd never know that he had the kind of success that he has. He has an amazing relationship with the student athletes. He can bring out the best in people. Think about the fact he won 2 national championships before we even had a track, which is completely unheard of. But he has a unique ability to find the gift in someone and bring it out of them. And he's really, really a competitive guy. You'd think after all the success that he has had, he'd shut it down and just kind of sit back and relax and enjoy a nice glass of wine. But Ray wants to win championships, and this is his purpose and his dream. So we're really blessed to have him in Friartown.
When we think about cross country and what is involved in coaching a cross country team, if somebody's not paying much attention or maybe is not familiar with the sport, it may not seem like there's much there, but there's a tremendous amount of strategy, not only within the races, but in timing it so that the athletes are at their peak at the right time. It's really an intricate process, isn't it?
Much more complicated than most people would think. I mean, this past weekend, the women ended up third and probably should have been in second place, but a young woman ended up with a strep throat, and she got sick 2 weeks before and tried to come back. But your body is a fine-tuned machine. The way these men and women run, as Chris knows as a runner, if you're not fine-tuned at that particular day, somebody's gonna beat you. But yeah, he's able to get in people's minds in terms of getting them to believe that they're better than they perhaps believe they are, and he's a unique talent. You won't see another like Ray Tracy probably here in a long, long time.
I'd like to talk about the Ruane Friar Development Center, the beautiful new building right next door. You haven't moved into your office there quite yet, but gosh, it's spectacular, and really everybody is buzzing about it. What does it mean to not only to Friar Sports, but to Providence College?
Well, for me, it was a defining moment that if you get enough people collectively working together on a dream, you can really accomplish it. And Joe, you know, walking around this campus with over $400 million of brand new facilities, it started with a vision or a conversation, a possibility that we'd like to talk about. But then you had to have donors willing to step up and write the checks to make that happen, and have a president and trustees that really value, in this particular area, basketball. And it just shows you what's possible. I was blessed. I've been blessed to be here for 17 years, and I can promise you Friartown didn't look like it does today. And I don't take any of the credit other than my obsessive drive to try to create something that's really special. But teammates like you and Chris and Father Shanley and Mike Ruane and Joe Calabria, the list goes on. And, that's what makes Friartown great, and it's something we all collectively can be proud of.
Can we talk a little more about people like the Ruanes and the Calabrias, Olivers and Donovans, so many others whose names are on spaces in that building, and who, more broadly speaking, have contributed in amazing ways to making Providence College what it is today? What do you see in people like that? And what do you hear when you talk with them about investing in making Providence College even better?
Well, first of all, they're great people. People don't donate those kinds of resources unless they're really generous, kind people. But I think every single one of those people will tell you they are who they are today because of their experience at Providence College. And when those men and women went to school here, it was a different place, perhaps facility-wise, but the character, integrity of the people remains the same. And all those folks feel like it's their time to pay it forward, if you will, and it's a testament to the education you get at Providence, but it's a testament to how unique this place really is. As an alumnus, how very, very different it is from most institutions, and I think that's what's really special about it. It's the people.
You referenced men's basketball in the context of Ruane Friar Development Center. Could you be more specific about that? What does this facility mean to that program?
Well, it's a statement, and I've heard Father use this term, that we have arrived. We're the last school in the Big East to actually create a facility like this. So we actually learned a lot from what other people did, and traveled around the country and took the best ideas and incorporated it. But it allows Ed, I think, to recruit the best student athletes in the nation, because I often say you have one chance to make a first impression. And when you walk into a building like that, you know that we're serious about competing at the highest level. So I think you can get in on student athletes perhaps wouldn't be interested in Providence otherwise. And then when you get in, it is a high-performance center where it's got all the state-of-the-art bells and whistles that will help them not only physiologically, but psychologically, emotionally. And it's just a really, really cool testament to our commitment to being great.
One of the places that you went to check out similar facilities was just up in Boston. That's another interesting connection. The president of the Celtics, Rich Gotham, is a member of the class of '86 and a trustee. So you got an inside look at the beautiful facility they have there, and some of that is reflected in what we see here, right?
Yeah, I think the facilities are very, very comparable. I think that one thing they have perhaps more than we do, because those guys are there 24/7. They've got maybe a bigger kitchen and a chef, but that's all right. We have a phenomenal kitchen as well. But I would say our weight room, or certainly our training facility, our gym, the high-performance lab upstairs is as good, if not better, than even what the Celtics have, which is saying something, right? For a college like Providence College to have what they have at the world-renowned Boston Celtics. But it's the right fit for us, right? We weren't trying to compare it to anything else. We wanted to fit us, and it's something that's bigger than just men's basketball. Women's basketball practices in there, lifts in there, soccer team lifts in there. Everybody has access to the high performance center, which speaks volumes to the collegiality of our program here at Providence College.
So the Innovation Lab High Performance Center is so many really interesting pieces of equipment there, literally state-of-the-art cryogenic chambers and things of that nature. Why was it important to make that investment in the health and the recovery of student athletes?
Well, it's probably the most important component of it, right? The mind, the body can only go where the mind will take it. And so to have a sports psychologist up there and have a nutritionist up there, to have sleep pods in there, we have meditative rooms, you have deprivation camps, tanks in there where you can sit in there for 15 minutes in the complete dark at your body temperature. It's equal to about 2 hours of actual sleep. All those things are really important in terms of recovery. And you look at our student athletes, they compete at the best in the classroom, but also the best on the courts and on the playing field. So it's how do you get the most out of everyone, and this facility allows us to do that.
Your reference to sports psychology and the other elements of student athletes' health and well-being reminds me of a really interesting and important program. John Rock talked with us about this in a podcast recently, the Associate AD for sports medicine, the You're Never Alone in Friartown program, mental health initiatives. Really, it seems like Friar Sports and Providence College have been at the forefront of some of the work and thinking here. Really an important initiative and something that seems to be a priority. What motivated that from your perspective?
Well, student athletes, like all students today, are under a lot of pressure. You're competing against the best, and I think this generation has more pressure on them than any other generation. And having mental health pressures, I think, is an issue amongst students in general. So we wanted to recognize that and bring it out of the closet, if you will. Oftentimes, it's an issue that no one wants to talk about because, particularly if you're student athletes, it could be perceived as a sign of weakness, which it isn't, and we wanted to be open and upfront about that. So to really support our student athletes, if they need someone to talk to, and it doesn't have to be in athletics, it could be a faculty member, a staff member, an alumnus, certainly a psychologist or a psychiatrist. We want our student athletes and our students here to know that you're not alone, that we're here to help. And I think it's a great initiative, and John Rock deserves a lot of the credit for taking the lead on it.
Those demands on student athletes' times are remarkable. It's asking a lot for somebody to practice every day and to compete at a high level and to do the work they have to do in the classroom. Yet, Friar student athletes do well, and with respect to their grades, a 3.22 GPA last year. What is it that leads to that kind of success?
Well, I think they're competitive people by nature, and it's something we talk about all the time, being most respected, 100% graduation, and compete for championships. That's part of our core values, and I think they take pride in that. I've often said how you do anything is how you do everything, and if you're going to be great on the courts or on the pool, you should do the same thing in the classroom, and it's something I'm really proud of because as much as the student athletes love their sport, at some point, Joe, we're going to get old and not be able to do the things you do when you're 18 to 22 years old, or if you get a chance to play in the NBA, the NHL, or be an Olympic athlete, that's a gift as well. But eventually, you're going to have to work for a living, and that's going to come from the education you get. And getting a world-class education at Providence College is really going to transform these young people's lives.
So when you started to think about working for a living, did you always think you wanted to work in sports?
I did. There was two things I thought I was pretty good at as a kid. One was sport, and one was music. So I had my own band. I was a drummer, and my name of the band was the Night Riders. And then I was also pretty good in sport. And, of course, my dad was a pretty good athlete, and I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to play hockey and baseball, which transformed my life. And I wanted to be a high school teacher and a coach. And so I was really blessed to be able to achieve that dream. And this is actually the completion of my 44th year doing this, Joe. And I still feel like a young buck because I'm around young, talented people that bring out the best every day. So I'm one of the lucky guys on the planet.
Your college experience was at Ithaca College, the Bombers. So you're a Bomber, which you played the two sports there, as you mentioned, and then started your career in sports at Union College, where you were the baseball coach and did some other things there too. But there's an interesting story about how you started at Union and they came and sort of found you.
was kind of fascinating. I was a captain of my team at Ithaca, and I was promised the graduate assistantship, and they hired a new coach, and they gave it to his brother. I was devastated. And so they gave me the intramural recreational director's GA, which I wanted nothing to do with. But ironically, getting that job allowed me to get the job at Union College, which was their first full-time intramural recreation director. It was a Division III school at the time, Division I hockey. And Ned Harkness, who was a renowned coached the Detroit Red Wings and won 2 national championships, one at RPI and one at Cornell. He quit in the middle of the year, and I was 23 years old, and they came to me and said, "You want to coach hockey?" And I said, "Sure." I was one of the coach hockey. Joe, we played, I think we played the University of Ottawa with a bunch of kids. I had to get out of the dorms and JV kids, and we lost 19-1. The sold-out crowd threw all their hats onto the ice like we had won the Stanley Cup. And I was a happy man, but I don't think I've ever lost another game 19-1 in my life.
University of Ottawa players were probably all older than you.
Oh, I think they were in their 30s, I'm telling you. I need to rattle out the night before.
So in the early 80s, you went west as a young man to Mills College in Oklahoma, then Cal Berkeley. That's 20 years in California. Did you always have an eye on coming back home?
You know, it's interesting. I wanted to move to the West Coast. I had an aunt who lived in Newport Beach, and I went out on Christmas Day, and I was swimming in the Pacific Ocean, and I had one of those aha moments, Joe, where I didn't want to shovel snow anymore. But I actually took a job as the first full-time athletic director at Mills College in Oakland, California. And Oakland Raiders had just won the championship, and I'd never been there. And, you know, I was 28 years old, and I was an AD, and I could make a lot of mistakes and not have to worry about reading about it in the newspapers. So I honed my craft there and then spent 15 years at the University of California, Berkeley. My mom and dad still lived in West Concord, Massachusetts, and my dad got sick, so I decided I'd come back and spend some time with him. And I thought I'd only be in Friartown for maybe 2 or 3 years, but fell in love with the place. My son went to undergraduate and graduate school here, and here I am 17 years later.
Back to the Cal experience for a moment. So that's a football school. Obviously, I would guess that's the big thing within the Cal sports universe. What's it like being at a big-time football school?
It's a pretty intoxicating environment. You know, when you come through the tunnel and there's 80,000 people and you're playing USC or UCLA, it's a pretty cool day on a Saturday. But with that comes with a lot of big headaches as well. You know, we had 1,400 student athletes. We had to manage 125 football players on a campus that had 40,000 students. And so I likened it to trying to drive a big oil tanker, right? You couldn't be SWAT-like and quick like we can here in Friartown. But, you know, at the time, that was big-time college football. We had a pretty good basketball team. Jason Kidd played on that team. The great Tony Gonzalez was on that team as well. So we had some pretty good years there. But you know, I always found that I was more effective at a smaller place. I come from a small town. I went to a small school because you can actually build substantive relationships that you can do something special. Big schools, it's harder because you've got so many people and there's a lot more politics.
I can imagine a state university too, right, to boot. So there was all of that. A couple of bowl games at least during that time period, right?
Yeah, we got as high as 5th in the nation. Won the Citrus Bowl, the Alamo Bowl. We won a couple other bowls. We got to the Sweet 16 a couple times. We had a pretty good run there for a while.
So in the 17 years at PC, obviously a lot happens in a time frame like that. But right now the success is extraordinary. What is it that sort of set Friar Athletics on this course that it's on right now?
Well, I remind my staff all the time, it took a long time to get to this point. We weren't winning games, perhaps, or graduating at the same levels, but we had the same vision and the same passion around it. But, you know, it was a confluence of events. We've always had aspirations to be the model program in all of college athletics, and I think early on people thought I was crazy to even talk like that. But I believe you can accomplish anything if you get enough people on the bus and going in the right direction. But I think it's about having great leadership from the trustees that they want to have this happen. I think when Father Shanley came on board and he really understood the value that a successful athletic program can have on the image of an institution if done the right way is positive. I've got great coaches. You look at Nate and Ray and Ed Cooley, and the list goes on and on. They're world-class coaches. And then we had donors that supported us to build these facilities. And then we've got the 2 best leagues in the country with the Big East and Hockey East. And we've kept people here. I always wanted Providence College to be a destination and not a stepping stone, Joe. And now people come and they don't want to leave because they're treated with respect, and now we've had some success. So now our challenge is, how do we keep it going and even get better?
I've been interested in your thoughts and your perspectives on being part of a conference or a league, because to fans, well, Villanova and Xavier and Northeastern are the enemy. But from your perspective, you're part of a team when you're in a group like that with a conference. How do you sort of perceive that? How important is it to have success conference-wide or league-wide, and how do you support each other?
It's really important, Joe. And if you look at the old Big East, I can't honestly say that was the case. But when Villanova won the national championship, we're up there, giving Jay a big hug. When Xavier gets the first, the number one seed, we're supporting those folks. It really is a collective family, because their success is our success and vice versa. We see our NCAA units, Madison Square Garden, national television on Fox, and I think that makes us really unique.
So competing for championships and winning them is obviously a goal. You're all very competitive people, or you wouldn't be in athletics. To do that, what has to come first?
I think the first thing has to be the vision. You have to have the courage to talk about being a champion and not shy away from that. You have to be able to take risks and be okay with failure, because that's where you learn the most, is from failure. You have to hire the right people that are cut from the same fabric, that are selfless, hardworking, and loyal, and that you can trust, that have integrity. So people are what make it happen. And then it's the infrastructure. You have to have the resources to hire the best coaches. You have to have these world-class facilities. You have to recruit the best student athletes. And you have to be bigger than just winning. Sport is just a mechanism by which we teach the core values of education: hard work, mental toughness, perseverance, selflessness. And if you do those things the right way, I think you have a chance of building a championship culture which will win championships.
So all the places you've worked also happen to be fine academic institutions. Does that flavor the sort of environment and culture in ways that you can identify?
Well, that's very important to me. I wouldn't be sitting here today if I wasn't fortunate enough to get an education where people held me accountable, and my job is to do the same thing with my coaches and student athletes. But if you want to be the model program, it's about being the best academically and athletically, in that order. I think the tail wags the dog sometimes in college athletics, where it's all about athletics and academics is secondary. And I think you're doing our young people a disservice. And so I'm really proud about the fact that we talk about graduation. You should graduate. There's not one student athlete that shouldn't graduate from Providence College. And if you don't, it's either a failure on us or a failure on them. And that's just unacceptable to me.
So we're recording this discussion in your conference room, and on the wall facing me is a series of pictures of all of your head coaches. Boy, so much of this comes down to getting the right coaches, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And we have a saying that we're Team Friars, and our core values around here: mutual respect, integrity, honesty, effort, constant improvement. But this is my family. We are part of this. We're joined at the hip, and it's what makes Friartown special. It's the same as Joe, you sitting here, and Chris sitting here, and the love you have at this institution. It's this whole concept of us, we together, Friars family. It's more than words, right?
Certainly is. When you are in the business of hiring a coach, what are some of the attributes you're looking for? Well, you just went through this past summer, right? You hired 2 new coaches. So how do you work that? What comes to mind? What do you go through in sort of a mental process? That's
a really good question. And I've made a lot of mistakes doing this for a long period of time, but it's probably the most complicated task there is as an athletic director, as a leader. But I know what fits at Providence College now, and what fits for me. I'm attracted to energy. I'm attracted to passion. People are going to make mistakes, but I need people that are resilient, that can get knocked down 10 times and get back up 11 times. I want people that I admire and respect, people I want to be around. I want to like them. In most cases, I want to love them, because you're in relationship with them. You're in the in the boondocks together battling, right? So you want to be around people you respect. So I think you can figure that out in these conversations. And if you get the right people, and we've got them, it's a lot of fun. Even when you lose, it's fun, because you know that they're going to be with you when you get your head back up. As we begin to wind down here, I'd like to just broaden the discussion of the Ruane Friar Development Center just a bit, because you've been, of course, instrumental to all the planning for this facility, what it is now and what it will become. It's important to remember that there's more to this. There will be a second phase that will involve a lot of work to Slavin Center, the development of the career education
and professional development facility there, plus an expanded 64 hall. So much more. The details don't matter all that much at this point, but there's a lot more to happen, and it will be a facility that affects our entire community, our students, alumni returning for events, and really everything else. Why is that important from your perspective?
Well, it's important because it will bring the community together. It links the Slavin Center to Alumni Gym, to the Ruane Center. It will be a beautiful entrance that will have a glass roof on top of it, allow us to educate our student athletes. It'll be a beacon. I mean, right now you look at the Ruane Center and it's all glass and it's lit up at night. It's a powerful, welcoming center for all of us. But I think it's a collaboration between student affairs and athletics and recreational sports and academics, and that's what makes Friartown very, very special. It's not a silo.
And it will literally be a link, right, between the athletics facility and everything else. So there's symbolism there in a sense.
Yeah, there really is. And I hope there's a street there, we'll call it Friartown Way, where we can have our parties out there and our concerts and everything we just celebrated. But it's really, really exciting. We have a meeting tomorrow about phase 2. It's funny, you finish one thing, you move right on to the next, but that's the juice and energy around building stuff.
That's how momentum works, right? It keeps on going. What's the future of Friar Sports? What are your dreams?
Well, my dream is to become the model program. I mean, we've been chasing Villanova for a while, but I think we're going to catch them and we'll be equal to, if not better than. I want people to look at Providence College no longer as this little engine that could, but this real trend center, this fighter jet that comes in and just is really powerful and just something really special. People ask me what does it remind me of. I want it to be like a Ferrari, really. I mean, just a really cool place where people want to work and play and just, educate our student athletes to become the best they can be.
Well, Bob, it's always a lot of fun talking to you. I really thank you for your time today. This has been most enjoyable. We're at, as we mentioned, a great time of year. Looking forward to the beginning of basketball season, hockey continuing, fall sports wrapping up. Thanks for all you do and for taking the time to share your insights with us today.
Thanks, Joe. It's been a real pleasure. Go Friars.
And thank you for joining us today. You can subscribe to the Providence College podcast at all the usual places, and they're available on the college's YouTube channel. Feedback is welcome at podcast@providence.edu. Thanks to our producer and Yankees fan, Chris Judge. I'm Joe Carr. Until next time.